Today we're going to look at three groups of people: good-looking people, average-looking people, and not so good-looking people. And ask the question, which one of these group of people are most likely to find favor in the eyes of God? So let's begin. Are good-looking people less likely to find favor in the eyes of God? The average man less likely to find favor in the eyes of God? Or those we consider less good-looking, can they find favor in the eyes of God? When discussing this topic, there's two main things to consider. One, the trees you come from. I'm using a metaphor here. Your parents, your family lineage. And two, your default position, who you are inside. So first, let's look at the trees you come from, meaning your family, your father, mother, and your family lineage. Now, your family tree has a lot to do with it. The reason why is this. If you have whole generations of people who think a certain way, for example, there are gamblers, there are serial predators, there are warmongers, you have a whole family of people who are judges or lawyers or doctors or teachers, chances are that children will not only aspire to be like the parent, but they will also, you could say it runs in the blood. They may also want to do the same things like their parent. Now, it's the same thing with your spirituality, and it's the same thing with who you are and who you're most likely to become. So, for example, if you had a parent, if your mother and father were civil servants, let's say they were judges. If both parents were judges, chances are they have what you call a thing for law. It kind of runs in the blood, it runs in the family. Chances are that the children they produce will almost certainly follow in that trend, will almost certainly be like them. Especially if both parents are the same, like-minded. Because one of the only reasons why people will come together, people like that will come together, is that they're both like-minded. So they want to be around like-minded people. So people who are lawyers and doctors and judges and teachers and politicians and soldiers and policemen and so on, mostly talking about the civil servants here, they're most likely to be around people who are that way inclined, and are most likely to marry into those family and produce the next generation of public servants. Now, if that's the case, you can also see where I'm going with this conversation, that they are also most likely to follow in the footsteps of their parents. So most of these people I'm describing, 99% of them are almost certainly ungodly people. They have no God in them. Most of these people want nothing to do with God, even if they put on a bitter face and go to church on Sunday to God. So that's an example of traits and family lineage, the way things will follow. It's the same thing, it's the very same thing with looks. So the way you look will determine your character, your attitude. 99% of the time you'll find that good-looking people, they're outgoing, they're outspoken, they talk a lot, and they talk a lot of things they don't know nothing about as well, but they tend to talk a lot. They're always at the front of everything, and they think they know it all, and they always have a big mouth because they don't have much to worry about in the way of, will I be accepted in society? Will I be accepted by others? Everybody seems to like them. They're always popular. Everywhere they go, everybody just warm to them because they're easy on the eyes. We have to, these are facts. Good-looking people are just that. They're just easy on the eyes, and they're just easy to deal with. They're always popular, right? It's just a fact. But being popular and being easy on the eyes doesn't mean you're going to be easy on the eyes to the devil, or you're going to be easy down there in hell. Because one of the big disadvantages, it does have its advantage being very easy on the eyes, or what you call beautiful and easy to look at. The problem they have is that because the 99% of the time, it's always they live off their emotions, they live off their confidence, they live off their looks. It means everything to them. And as a consequence, they become very vain. As a consequence, they ignore, it comes at the expense of their souls. They ignore righteousness and holiness. As a consequence, they want nothing to do with God because they have the world at their feet. They have the world looking at them. They have the world adoring them. They have society loves them. Everybody smiles with them. Everybody look favorably upon them. If they want to go marry into a family, it's always yes, it's never no. You will never find a very beautiful woman wants to marry into a family and most people say no. They will always say, oh, she's beautiful, yes, we'll welcome her any day. But you get a woman the opposite to that, and everybody turns the back and not the face. Almost certainly you'll get that reaction. She'll have to fight her way, or she'll have to claw her way into that family. She'll have to fight tooth and claw. There'll be a lot of reservation. There'll be a lot of backstabbing and back talking and bad talking, and there'll be just a lot of resentment. Worse if she doesn't look the average. And she looks less than the average. There'll be a lot of reservations there, put it that way, to say the least. Especially if she wants to get into a family of good-looking people in the first place. She wouldn't even have to. It's not only tooth and claw. She'll have to fight her way in there, but she'll have to use some other improvisations as well, poison and all. She'll have to improvise and use a lot more of the deadly weapons just to work her way up to the top, or work her way up in that family if she really wants to stay there. Because there'll be resentment from every corner. How did you marry such a ugly woman? How did there'll be a lot of, it's just the way society is. They always prefer the better looking people, particularly if they're of lighter complexion. It's just the way people are, and that's a fact. There's no two way about it either. You can think of it what you like, but it's a fact. Those that don't, prefer these traits, they're less than average looking themselves. That's a fact too. All of those people that will tell you I don't want a beautiful woman in my family or a handsome man, they're less than handsome themselves. They're less than good looking. They're not of the average type. That's a fact. There's no way you're going to tell me you do not want somebody that looks better than you. You want somebody to look worse than you. So if you're that way inclined and you have that mindset, then maybe all of your generation is just looking less than you, less better than you. That aside, we'll come to them in a minute. So most of these good-looking people, will they ever find favor in the eyes of God more than those who are average or less good-looking? The ones who are most good-looking are in the most trouble. And I say this because they have a less chance of finding favor in the eyes of God by virtue of their birth. Most of them, as a default position, they have very little to worry about. Flowing nice hair. When one say you're perfect, when one say, well, that person is just stunning, it means your hair is beautiful, your skin is beautiful, you have nothing to worry about. So when I talk about being beautiful, I'm talking the whole package. You come with the whole lot. You got it all, kind of thing. So those people are almost certainly in trouble because they will find it very difficult to stay in the straight and narrow. There are a lot of perks to being beautiful and look good and being handsome, but it comes with a lot of pride. You always snub at people. You always think you're better than everybody else. You don't want to be talked to or talked down at. You don't want to be talked to at all. You think you deserve everything good. You think the world owes you something. You think you deserve it. You think people, when you pass, people have to look favorably upon you or smile. And if they don't, you feel hurt. Your pride gets hurt more than the man who wasn't expecting all that at all, because he knows he ain't all that. So he's not expecting all that. But the one who think he's, so beautiful, the world should fall at his feet, he's vain. He's always picking his eyebrows. He's always putting makeup on his skin when he doesn't need to. The best of the best. And this becomes his world. His pride and his look becomes his God. And he lives and he's trapped and he's shackled firmly to that world. The world of his darkness. The world of his own making. The world of his delusion. The world of his illusion. He deserves it. He must get that. If you take a very handsome man and put him in a battered up old vehicle, he doesn't feel comfortable. You think he has to get into the brand new car or the nice car. He doesn't think he should be in the old shack down the road, that old house that is about to fall down. If he wants a house, he wants the best one. If he wants a wife, he wants the most beautiful wife. He think he owns. He think he deserve it, and society also thinks so too. If they see a very handsome man struggling or suffering, society think, well, you don't deserve it. Well, you shouldn't really suffer like that. Look at this guy. He has potential. He can be better. But if you see a man who looks rough and less than average, you don't think he has any potential, and you definitely don't think he can do better at all. But if you see a man that looks better than average, what you would say flawless and have the full package, perfectly beautiful and so on, then you would think that that man can do better. Then you think that man have potential. Then you want to put him at the front desk. Then you want to put him like a brand new shiny car in the car showroom. You leave the second-hand cars at the back, and the less than average one, you want to send them at the scrapyard. So that is how you will almost certainly perceive people who are very good looking, whether it's a beautiful woman or a very, very handsome man. So it's just a fact of life, and every society, every people will do that. You go to the Amazon jungle, and you bring this very fair skin complexion, blue eyes, blonde, whatever they call beautiful here, and most people will think that, okay, all right, he's different from us and he's got some potential. You bring somebody that looks like them, they're not only ready to fight him, but they're ready to put him on the scrap heap. They're ready to put him at the back of the class. They're ready to call his name lost, because to them he's just average. To them he's just another black person. He's just another white person. He's just another red person. He's just another yellow person. They don't look favorably. They don't think anything special about him. He's just one of us. But if he looks a bit different from you, especially if he's of a very lighter complexion, you have a lot of people out there who deny that there is any such thing as black or black color, who denies their own color, thinking that there's some other color. You have people out there who deny knowing each other, because they just don't cut it. You introduce your beautiful wife to your family, and you're worried about some men. They don't even want to introduce their wife and kids to some of their family members, because some of them just don't cut it. Some of them look rough. They fall in hard times. Some of them don't speak well. They're not well spoken, and some people you just don't want to engage with them. So what I'm trying to say is, the more flawless you are, whether you speak flawlessly or you look flawless, whether you're perfect in it, I'm talking about the whole package. You're most likely to be accepted. You're less likely to be frowned upon. The people less likely to turn their backs to you. You're most likely to get the attention of many people, as opposed to if you're just average looking or you're less than average looking, is what I'm trying to say. But for those people, the vanity creeps in, the vainness of man creeps in. They're the ones who are plucking their eyebrows. They're the ones who have a lot of feminine characteristics, because they want to outshine everybody, and they think they constantly have to outshine everybody, and they think they're entitled to everything. If you go back to the story of the Bible with Lucifer, what was he? He was the morning star. He was the shiniest of the shiniest. They describe him far more luminous and glorious than every other angel. And what happened to him? Gets to his head. Now he wants to be God. Being beautiful and perfect wasn't good enough for him. Now he wants more than that. And he think he was entitled to the throne. He think he was entitled to be God. And that's the problem when one person has too much, or the whole package. The more they have is the worse they become. The better they look is the more sinful and ungodly and abominable they are. It's the more experiment with themselves they try to do. It's the more sodomizing their ways are. It's the more fornication they will do. It's the more adultery they will practice. It's the more boogery and all the other abominable things of man. It's the more drugs they will take. It's the more they will drink and laugh and show off and socialize. It's the more club and party they will go. They are always the talk of the town. They are always the star of the show. Whenever they walk in, everybody is silent. All the less than average people eat last. All the less than average people sit last. He is always first. He think he's entitled to everything. He think everybody owe him something. And he think he is greater and he's the greatest and he's the one. Until he falls like Lucifer. And 99% of them will end up in that way. Because they always think they're entitled to everything. He doesn't want to be seen in a battered up old car. He thinks he's better than that. And society also thinks so too. You will have a lot of women, they will say, he doesn't dress well and he looks so good. He has such a good body. Most women will say that. He has such a good body. I don't even want to talk like that. Tell the truth. Most women will say he has such a good body and he shouldn't dress like that because he's so handsome and he has the full package and even society will agree. I'm telling you, if you see a very, very handsome man falling on hard times and you have a daughter, most men would say, listen, I'll help you, brother. Help me out here. I need some good look in this family too. You have potential. It's the same thing. It's like if you see a big, strong man and you work in the fields, you see a big, strong man and a skinny man. You more gravitate to the big, strong man who can help you out in the fields if that's what you're doing, or you're lifting boxes. It depends on or you may be involved in a business that needs a lot of muscle power. You will always gravitate to the one that can help you the most. If you have less than average looking people in your family, or your daughter is less than average looking, then you may want her to aspire to marry someone and have kids with somebody who is better looking than her, who can kind of bring things up a little bit, who can balance things out a bit, so to speak. If you're dirt poor, you may want a man that has a bit of money. And just to say or anything, that if you're dirt poor, that you may want to aspire to be better than what you are. Or if you're less than average looking, you may want to pick up a man that maybe can balance things out a bit in your favor. If you have a company, you may want to put somebody at the front who knows what he's talking about and maybe look the part as well. And they will look at that woman who's less better looking than they are, and they will instantly start judging that woman, that woman that's interviewing them. Like, who do you think you are? I'm better looking than you, and you turned on my application. So they will feel entitled to than the man or woman that doesn't go there expecting anything, because they know they're not looked upon in that way. So an average man or a less average looking man will not go to a job interview believing that he's entitled to it, because the person that might be doing the interview might be better looking than him and might be more intelligent than him. So he'll go there and humble himself. But the man that looks more handsome than the man who is interviewing him, he might be thinking, I should be in your position, I should have your job, because he always feel entitled. He always feel like, oh, you to turn me down, and you're better looking, that you're less better looking than me, or you have less money than me. It's like a rich man. If a rich man gets turned down by a poor man, he feels very hurt, because it's the same principle. He thinks that, who are you to turn me down? I'm richer than you. Who are you to talk to me? Who are you to talk up to me? Who are you to challenge me? Who are you to give me your opinion? He will always think that he is entitled to something because he's rich. It's the same principle. So what I'm trying to state here are statements of fact. It may hurt some people. Some people may not like that kind of gesture. Some people may not like this kind of conversation, but it is true. There are people that are just easy on the eyes. There are others that are not, and that's a fact. Some people, they always look angry. Some people, their eyes are always red and looking like they just wake up, or they were smoking, and it's not necessarily so, but it's just some people always look tired in the face. Some people just always look fresh and green and smiley. It's just the way you come across. It doesn't mean that you're bad or good, but it's just the way you project to the world. It's just the way you come across to people. Some people don't smile at all. They see nothing to smile for. But there are others that just always have a friendly smile. And those people get on with others better. They're more popular. They're more outgoing. So I'm just making statements of facts here. And of course, if you're less than average looking, you're going to always want to look for somebody that can balance things out a bit, with you, so you and your offspring. So you're gonna try and improve things a bit, and it's the same thing. But the only problem, so there are pros and cons. There are good, there are advantages and disadvantages to the men or women that looks really nice and have the full package. There are disadvantages that they're vain. They're almost certainly going to be vain, and as a result of which they will never form that spiritual umbilical connection to their creator. And that is a fact. You go out there, you look out there at the average man and woman. Most of the beautiful people, they're all ungodly, sinful people. Most of them. Whether you see them in the clubs or you see them just go by, they're always the one that wants to go out and dress up nice, the vain. They never want to cook and like the average woman. They don't want to breastfeed. It will mess up their breasts. They don't want to do a lot of things the average woman will do, or the less than average woman will do. They don't want to cook. They don't want to clean. They're just ungodly and fake. Most of them are ungodly, fake, and it's not the type of woman you really would want. Because if you're going to only pick a woman because she's beautiful, you're going to pick a woman for the wrong reason. Because all you end up producing is a bunch of devils like the woman, like that beautiful woman. They're sinful, ungodly people for the most part. I'm not saying that they're the type of people that will run you down with a machete or a gun. I'm not saying that. What I'm talking about is sinfulness. They're the most likely not to find favor in the eyes of God. And that, my friends, is a fact. They're the least likely one to be seeking a connection to God. They're the least likely one. They're so preoccupied with the things of this world and themselves and their own success and their own self-gratification. They have no time for God. Most of those good-looking people, men and women. Now let's talk about the average. Now what's of them? Now the average Joe, average man and woman, they're in the same category. They're so busy chasing their dreams every day in, day out. They're so busy working for those who are better looking than them. Because most of the people with all the money, they always marry good looking women and good looking men. So you find that most of the good looking ones are at the top anyway. So to speak, most of the good looking ones, they will always somehow whisked off by some rich man or some rich woman who will want a good looking man, or some rich man will be looking for a good looking woman. And so on. So they will most likely you'll find those ones at the top, and they're the most ungodly of them all. But anyway, so the average man is kind of in the same boat, because he's always chasing after his dreams, and he's always following after the better looking people, after the richer people than himself, after the better off than himself, always working for the man that is better than him. So he's also in that dire straits, where he's always chasing after things that he'll never be and never get, right? And he'll always be working for those who are better than him, and that's all he'll ever do. So and the ones who are better than him create a system where they preoccupy all his time for his entire life just working for them. And what I mean by that is, how long you think you'll get to pay off your mortgage? You buy a house for £500,000 or £400,000. You're taking 35, 40 years to pay off for that. In some cases, maybe 50 years, depending on how much you're earning. You may take 35, 40, 50 years to pay off for that. That's all your life. You're lucky if you live to 50, most of you. Most people are lucky if they get to 50, yet alone 70. And even if you do get to 70, the little 20 years you have will be living in pain and agony and misery, and screaming and crying and crawling every day for pain, and all bits of you falling off every minute. All part of you not working, and this part is not working. Keeping after changing your starter motor. You're keeping after look at the old ticker. The engine is leaking oil. The gasket is gone. The old headlights are all busted. You have to wear, you have to put on goggles or glasses or whatever you put on these days. I'm just saying that you spend your whole life working for those who are better than you, trying to be like them. And you spend 30, 40 years paying off for a mortgage, working every day God send just to pay off for that house. And by the time you reach 50, you have 20 more years to go, for example, or you have 10 more or 20 more years to live, or 10 more years if you're lucky. And that 10 year will be spent living like someone in a care home. By the time you pay off for the house, you need looking after. you're finished anyway. So you spend your whole life just to get to the point where you're finished. And all you're doing is waiting to die in pain and agony and all kind of bits and pieces of you falling off. Every time you take 2 steps, something goes wrong. You're short-circuiting everywhere like an old robot. Batteries all busted. You can hardly move under your own weight. You can hardly drag that old carcass around. So the average man is in the same boat, pretty much. The ones who are better looking than him and have more money than him and better off than him, and they're mostly at the top, these ones create a system where they enslave him, who always trying to be like them at the top. So he's working all his life to pay off for this house that he can never pay off. By the time he pay off for it, he's just ready to die. Just ready to go to sleep permanently for one last time. So he's pretty much wasting his time too, thinking that he's one of them. Or he can be like one of them. You can't be like them. You're just average and that's it. Don't worry about it. You'd be better off spending your time worried about your soul. So most of his whole life, 99% of the average man is meaningless anyway. Has no meaning. By the end of it all, he's just waiting to die, just like the rest. So what's of the less average looking people? Well, the less average looking people, they definitely is in a quagmire. They're like in a marshland. They're in waters up to their knees. They can neither go or come. So most of those will also try to get out of it, that sticky situation they're in, and they will always try to be like the average man or better than the average man. So it's a real struggle for them, and they can't find much people to get them out of it because they're less than better looking. You don't have much men throwing their daughters at him or women throwing themselves at him, because he pretty much have nothing to offer, and what he has to offer, you can get it elsewhere and more. You can get it with money too. So the thing about him is that he's in a real bad, he's in a sticky situation. But will that make him a little bit more godly? It is the question. And you will find that when you're up to your knees in mud, when you're stuck in that sticky situation, most of people in that situation are the most religious you find among us. The average churchgoer, they are broke. Most of these people who go to church, they go to church because, listen, they fail in life, failed them. Most people go to church, life just wasn't appealing to them for one reason or the other. First of all, most of them couldn't compete because it wasn't in their nature. And they didn't want to compete, most of them. The less average looking people, they don't really want to compete. They don't have that competitive spirit. They don't want to be outgoing and loud and braggadocious. They don't want to be bragging, and they're most likely to be humbler people. And as a consequence, they're most likely to find that peace and tranquility in life. Yes, their lives are hard, but this is where they rely on God more for their strength, for their redemption, for their salvation, as their helper. They mostly look up from whence come their salvation. These are people who are always seeing life as just a stepping stone to something greater. These are the people that take their time and look at what all the worldly attainments will achieve. And most of the time, they will see beyond the horizon. They see beyond the tip of their nose. Most of the time. Yes, they may be poorer than the average man. They may be poorer than the rich people. Yes, that is true. They may even be better looking. That is true. But they almost certainly will have more God in them. And that's the fact. The fact is that most of these people, when I say most, I'm talking about 60%. 40% will be lost, that's true. But about 60% of them, 55 to 60%, they're not much more than the average and those at the top. But about 55 to 60% of them, you get about 10% more that will gravitate more towards a spiritual enlightenment. They will gravitate more towards, they'll be more spiritually inclined because they look up to heaven for their help. because they can't get it down here. So they see the world as a real bad place for them. I mean, when you're in the quagmire, when you're in the mud deep up to your knees or up to your neck, you really have to see God. You really have to be more spiritually inclined. You really have to be more spiritually connected to a higher power than man. And hence you find that these people, their children also is somewhat is the same way spiritually inclined. You find that them and their old generations will be more church-going people, will be more godly people, will be most likely to be righteous people. Even if you do you'll have maybe one or two members of a family, of an average family. One or two of them, may become churchgoers, as opposed to most of the rich people where you have whole generations and none of them ever want to go to church. Whole generations of them have nothing to do with God, and God have nothing to do with them. In the average family, you may have one or two, maybe one if you're lucky, that is serious about their spiritual salvation, their spiritual health. In poorer families, you find that most of the time they look to heaven. They look to a greater, higher power for their salvation, because they know that down here there's no deliverance for them. It's all shackles, hardship, and pain and suffering. So most of the time, you'll find that they're more spiritually inclined and more godly. Now, some people say to me, so what about countries that economically doing very bad and very poor? And most of those people are not godly and they're very poor. Most people say that. What you have to understand, and that's why I say to you, I said 55 to 60% is no more than about 5 or 10% extra, that you will get. Because most poor people will always just be thinking about riches. And that's what they will be doing all their life, thinking about money. So there's no real much difference between, those who are less than average looking and those who are better looking than themselves, the average, and those who are better than average looking. There's no real much difference between those three groups. But the thing is that the more oppressed and suppressed, the more you feel like, you had a bad start, is the more you're really going to be more humble and try to seek salvation. You're going to try to seek your strength. You're going to try to seek, your help from a higher source. But at least I can have eternal life. Look at it that way. I mean, there's no point me fighting about this life and worldly attainment, because even if I did achieve all that, and it's unlikely, but even if I did, I'm going to lose my soul anyway. Now, I can't achieve any of that, so why not at least try to achieve eternal life and salvation? So most reasonable-minded people look and say, this world will fail me whether I succeed in it or not. I'll end up losing my soul, much like the average, and much like the better than average. So what do I have to lose? Nothing. I have nothing to lose. I have no riches to lose, and I don't have a beautiful face that will burn off in the lake of fire. So what have I got to lose? Most of them, 5 or 10%, maybe 20% of them who fall in the 1%, the few, maybe 20% of those will come because they want to escape fire, and the alternative was worse. Having a rich life and then end up in fire, it was worse. So most of them will look at it in that way and say, what am I to lose? Nothing. And then you will have the 1% that really came for the right reason. They came because they want to. They came expecting nothing. They came as they were, without one plea. They came as they were, rich or poor, bond or free. They came of their own free will. They came because they were chosen by virtue of their default position. They were good people anyway. They were from good tree. They were cut from good cloth. They were among Father's chosen few in the first place, by sheer virtue of their default position. Within them, they were good seeds. You can take a bad man and you can put him in a good situation, and he will be less bad. He is bad anyway. But you take a good man and you put him in a bad situation, he can be less good. But overall, he's good anyway. If you give him $1 million, he will always try to do the best for others. If you give a bad man $1 million, he will always think about champagne, luxury car, prostitutes, and a big home. That is all he'll gravitate to. Absolute useless. But you give $1 million to a good, righteous, and holy man, he will think about doing good to others with that money for as long as he can until he crosses the river, so to speak, until his last day. He will try to be good. And that's the difference between a good man, righteous and holy man, and a bad and a sinful person. The sinful one will think about champagne, prostitutes, and cars. You give him $1 million. But you give a righteous and holy man $1 million or £1,000,000, he will think about doing something good for the benefit of others. Yes, it's easily said than done, and we can all get corrupted because money can corrupt you. But still, you have a better chance of that righteous and holy man doing what is just and proper with that £1,000,000 than that ungodly sinner. You give him $1 million, and all he will think about is rock music, champagne, prostitutes, and cars. That's all he will do, and all the sinful things of this life. And that's a fact. I think we can all agree on that. So, are good-looking people, men and women, in trouble? Yes, they are. Is the average man and woman in trouble? Looking man and woman in trouble? Yes, they are too, because they're always chasing the money. And what about the less than average looking man and woman? Well, they're in a very sticky situation. They're in mud all the way up to their necks. And they're in a deep, deep, deep sinkhole, a sticky, sticky situation. But they're most likely to look up from whence cometh their salvation. They're most likely to form that spiritual connection to their Creator. They're most likely to be the godly, righteous, and holy among us. Yes, there may be few, because as I say, a lot of countries are very poor. Millions and millions of those people there, they're not righteous and holy, and they're poor. But that aside, at least an extra 5 to 10% of those will be more spiritual and have a better chance of forming that spiritual umbilical connection to their Creator than the average looking person, or those who are considered very, very good looking or pretty. So we can conclude from today's discussion that it stands to reason to believe, and all the evidence points to the fact that the less than average looking people are most likely, even although they have lots of disadvantages in life, but the one thing they have going for them is that they will receive, some of them at least, many are called, only few, but more of them will receive eternal life, if they stay the course and not give up their salvation for worldly attainments, or to try and achieve worldly attainments, because even if they do achieve that, they will still lose their souls, just like the others. So if they can follow the way of the light and continue to walk in the way of righteousness and holiness, they, the 1%, the few, will make it. And with that, I would like to close by saying, may the good grace of our Creator be with us and bless us always. Thank you all for your support. Thank you all for your subscription. Thank you all for listening. And we welcome one and all to the ministry. Why not give me a call or send me a message? Why not drop me an email or send me a voice message, and we will read it out and discuss it in the next program. I hope you all can join me in the next program. Hi everyone, now today I'm going to show you how to navigate to our channel quick and easy. Tap the channel name PGTL101, enter, or you will see a list of our videos down here. Why not go ahead and click on the logo or the channel, and you will see a bunch of our videos here. So you'll see all our latest videos here and all the programs we do. These are some new videos that have just been uploaded here. You can see all our shorts down here, less than a minute clip down here, and you can see all the videos we have in this section here. So why not go ahead while you're on our channel there and check out our talk on exorcism and our all-in-one videos. There's 6 videos in this section. And while you're there, why not tick that notification bell? Also, if you want to leave us a comment or drop us an email. And now up here you will find our shorts. Here you will find all our podcasts. If you're on YouTube or other social media sites and go directly to our channel, why not go down here and click on the logo just below all the comments that are made on our channel there. You can also learn more about the other programs we're doing, like our Patreon page, a Spotify podcast, and Buzzsprout. You can click on our logo or channel name. One other thing I'd like to show you real quick is how to get the program in your own language. All you have to do is to click on, or to hear the program in your own language, click on the subtitle. Here you can see it is already in English subtitle. To get the program in your subtitles, simply click on the settings button here, and here you will see that the program is already in English. Go ahead and click on the subtitle button there, or you can translate the program in your own language by clicking on auto. So by clicking on auto translate, just select your country and you can listen to the program in your own language. Click on subtitle there, and as you can see, it will translate English subtitles. So if I go ahead and play the program now, you'll see it in the English subtitle there. So on our website you'll get the full version videos, so why not go ahead and check out our website or our podcast. Scrolling down by checking out our other packages, which you can find in this section down here, and you can click on our Patreon page here or our Spotify page, Buzzsprout, to the other programs that we're running. So that is how you navigate our channel. So why not go ahead and click on our logo here or the channel name, and this will take you directly to our YouTube channel.